I despise seafood, but I will put the shrimp burgers in this area up against, and I'm a red meat kind of guy.
Always comes back to the food.
Guilty as charged. I found that the word ceramic has become a marketing term that's often added to the title of detailing products, but they only have a trace amount of SiO2. But at least you're humble enough to remove your cranium from your rectum and eventually surface. So
I just don't have a lot of skills, but if that's one skill I have, that is a very important skill.
You said you make a terrible employee. You said that yourself.
A terrible employee. I've been fired from every job I've had. Every job, including consulting jobs. I've been, let go from everything I've done because it just gets to a point in my brain where I'm like, I would sell feet pictures, before I go back on Monday to this place.
I was not expecting that.
All right, on the podcast today, we have one of the biggest Laker fans that I've ever met, which is awesome.
Oh, right away, shots fired. Come on.
Caught you off guard with that one, huh?
Yep, you got me.
I was planning that one, though. But in all seriousness, Joe Connolly has been a past guest of the podcast and one of my favorite guests to have on because we get to razz each other. And I think that's what it's all about. So, Joe, welcome back to the podcast. How is life in North Carolina?
Thanks, JB. Life is great here. We moved down here about 2 years ago. Hit the restart button on our life, and I'm glad we did it. From a financial standpoint, wasn't the smartest thing, but physically, mentally, spiritually, definitely a good move.
I like, so one thing I'm trying to do on this podcast too is to make it more than just about like car detailing. And so obviously it's up to you if you want to talk about this or not, but I think you just made a cool, interesting point of like, and for people who haven't followed the podcast for a long time and haven't heard Joe's story, you were a school teacher, you're a retired school teacher, right? And moved from Pennsylvania to North Carolina. Why did you move to where you did? Was it for to get out of the snow? But why'd you move where you did? And then I think you brought up a good point too. Like maybe financially stuff doesn't make sense sometimes, but spiritually, emotionally, physically, it does.
So we have two sons, and we warn them that when the younger one graduates from high school, we're selling everything and leaving because we found this area about 10 years ago, and my wife and I fell hard. We just knew it was the place we should be. So we aligned all our goals towards that. As far as leaving, I retired early from being a co-op teacher at a high school. Loved that job, loved helping students get involved in the trades. And, after 24 years, I could have coasted for another 10 or 15 and had a much larger pension. But it just wasn't the right fit for me. So I decided to start the business in Pennsylvania probably about 9 years ago, basically at first to get out of debt. But then it quickly turned into a side hustle that turned into a revenue generation stream that allowed us to facilitate this, pulling the ripcord and restarting our lives down here.
That's becoming a common theme with people that I have on the podcast too, is where detailing is the side hustle. And I think and I sound like probably a broken record at this point, but like, I think that's where detailing can be really, really impactful in someone's life is as a side hustle. And I think it's one of the easiest, best side hustles to like get started with. And I love that getting out of debt or being able to fulfill the dream that you have or whatever. And so you've been in North Carolina 2 years now?
Yep.
What's one of the biggest changes, either that you knew and expected or didn't expect moving down there?
I despise seafood, but I will put the shrimp burgers in this area up against, and I'm a red meat kind of guy, but they make shrimp burgers around here. This is Eastern North Carolina. You just have to have them. They're great.
Always comes back to the food.
Guilty as charged.
I'm with you. I'm always like, what's the food scene like? How are there good restaurants? And actually, that's one thing that keeps me in California is every time we go somewhere and I try the food, I'm like, man, this is so like subpar. And where I'm at in Southern California, it's like, no matter if you want Thai food or Chinese food or Mexican food or American food, or if you want all three or all five at the same time, you could literally have some of the world's best of all that all at once.
Well, you're forgetting about the culinary delight of Jack in the Box. But yes, I agree.
Well, you know what though, with Jack in the Box, whether it's the teriyaki chicken bowl or the tacos, I mean, pretty hard to beat. Pretty hard to beat.
Clearly, I've struck a nerve with that one.
And you know what I like about fast food is it's always consistent.
Yep.
So no matter where you're at, you know what to expect, you know?
Yep.
So, all right. So what do we got on the docket for today now that we cleared out North Carolina living and all that?
So are you too young to remember Choose Your Own Adventure books, or do you remember those?
I don't really remember them. I think the only reason I recall any of that is they've kind of resurfaced a little bit, specifically with like couples. It's like, if you're looking for date night ideas, here's an adventure book. And I want to say my wife bought us like a date night adventure book recently that we clearly never did. But so I'm going to say I'm too young because that feels nice, because I've been feeling really old lately.
I'm just trying to think how to frame this. Think like Jeopardy without there's different categories, but not different dollar amounts. So you could pick the topics. I got some notes here.
Perfect.
Coatings, beater cars, AI is dumb, mentoring, sub rosa, lightning round, and I'm going to throw a curveball bonus question at you at the end. Where do you want to start?
Let's start with AI is dumb.
AI is dumb. All right.
100.
I think AI and chatbots are dumb. But then again, I've got a 5-year-old Android phone and absolutely no social media. And before you say it, I know it's stupid from a business standpoint, but I just refuse to be involved in that. I've yet to have a positive interaction with a chatbot in either my business or personal life. And I've yet to find a way to effectively use Gemini or Claude or ChatGPT. So what say you?
I hold a different opinion than that. I really love them as a tool. I think so contrary to you being a teacher and all that, I am terrible with spelling. I'm terrible with grammar. I can barely talk, frankly, which is ironic that I have a podcast. But you know, I like, so as a content creator too, and then someone who's also not very good at all those other things that I just mentioned, I see like ChatGPT is what I use the majority of the time. I see it as a tool in the toolbox. So I'll give you a prime example. With my product brand, Jimbo's Detailing, customer service to me is really high on the totem pole. It's probably like the most, I put a high priority on it, right? With that, I have a certain image that I want to portray, and that image, especially when it comes to like emails, because that's how a lot of people reach out, is like email. I don't want someone to get an email back from me and it's like, oh my gosh, his like grammar is so terrible. And like, why did he put a comma there? Why did he misspelled the, like, what the heck, you know? Because I just feel like that can dilute the brand a little bit, and maybe I'm overthinking it a little bit. So where I will use like a Chat GPT is I will talk into it, right, on my phone, because I have the app, and say someone writes in with a question. I will then talk into Chat GPT my answer and tell it to, you know, have it make more sense if it needs to be, and also check for spelling and grammar, right? And then I will copy and paste the corrected response and respond, right? And so I think I would agree with you on it from a standpoint of like, it's not gonna run your whole life, right? It's not the end all be all yet, but just like with a lot of other things, they're just tools. And so I like to be on the cutting edge of technology stuff. And so I like to try to figure it out and use it and try to figure out how to get the most out of it. And I think I paid $20 a month or something like that for the Chat GPT Pro. And I think it's undervalued. But I will say I tried to have it create some like YouTube thumbnails for me, and those are atrocious. And so, yeah, but I'm a fan.
So coatings, beater cars, mentoring, sub rosa.
Let's do coatings.
All right. There's ceramic, graphene, Borophene, and even Kevlar coatings. And there's various durability claims from 1 year to 10 years to lifetime. Personally, I found that the word ceramic has become a marketing term that's often added to the title of detailing products in an effort to get them to sell. but they only have a trace amount of SiO2. So the word ceramic definitely resonates with customers, along with the 5-year expected coating life and price point. That's been my experience. What's been your experience relative to any of those points?
Yes, I think the like the 5-year claim is the most like understandable for customers. And I will say too, I think like it's finally so wipe on ceramics and ceramics in general, I guess, but wipe on ceramics are definitely becoming more of the like common layman lexicon, I guess, where people are looking for them, which has been nice, frankly. But I'm with you when it comes to Borophene or graphene. It was you that sent me an email about Borophene. Was
Yep.
that you? Okay.
Yeah, I was doing some background research to try to better understand chemically. I'm no Walter White, so I don't get the chemical properties behind it. I was trying to better understand it.
I believe, and I was trying to think, and I meant to follow up before this podcast with my chemist to talk to him about it because I had talked to him about it before. I believe, and I could be totally wrong, so I should actually verify this with ChatGPT. That'd be another good thing to do. But I believe Borophene is just kind of another name for graphene. I want to say that's like it's the same family. I think where companies clearly messed up, and maybe we've talked about this before, is they thought ceramic was such a buzzword, especially with products like Shine Armor when they came out, or Next Gen, or whatever, right? Everyone wanted ceramic, and it took the industry, even detailers, right? When ceramics started coming out, it took the industry from like a lower level and just hockey sticked up. I remember when I first started the podcast, I had Jason Rose, he was at McGuire's at the time, on the podcast, and he talked about his first $1,000 detail, right? And this is pre-ceramic coatings. Well, to get a detail to a dollar amount of $1,000 is significant without a ceramic coating, right? But you add in a ceramic, and all of a sudden you're doing a $1,500, $2,000 coating. It kind of makes the days of trying to sell $1,000 coating irrelevant. And I think that's why ceramics took on so much, is there was finally like a way for the detailer to make some legit money, and some young money, some would say. And then brands recognized that too. And then they tried to create that ceramic craze again, with words like graphene or Borophene or whatever. And the problem I think I saw was that the claims, by then people were fatigued of the name ceramic. And then I don't think graphene on its own is a good enough element of a product, of a blend, I guess you could call it. I think it's kind of like ChatGPT. It's just an added on feature, add some additional slickness. And I think it has some cool properties. I just don't think it has its own legs like ceramic did, if that makes any sense.
It does, and it seems like the word ceramic just hits differently with most customers, be they, as you coined the term, prosumers or weekend warriors. It's just a common thing now. People think that, oh, it's this magical unicorn tears. So that word has stuck around more so than the other derivations of coatings, I guess,
Right.
is how I see it.
Yeah. And it takes a long time for that buzzword to trickle down to those prosumers or those customers that will be approaching, if you're, a detailing business for that. Because I don't know about you in North Carolina, but for me, people still out here, customers still out here think that a clay, like clay wax, is the same thing, and they think clay removes scratches, right? So a lot of people know they want clay, they just don't really understand what it does. And I think the same thing is happening with ceramics too. It's like, I want this. I don't really know what it is, but I want it, and then, when you start talking about different options, lifetime is just, at least the customers I talk to, lifetime is like out the window. It's too long. They don't understand. Right. So like that 3 to 5 years, 5 years, in my opinion, being the top end is kind of the sweet spot to be able to sell someone. Especially if they're leasing a car, like a 3-year lease, a 4-year lease, that's like an ideal customer.
We can go beater cars, mentoring, sub rosa, or lightning round.
Let's go beater cars.
So S&P Global Mobility is the source of the often quoted statistic that the average American keeps their car 12.5 years due to the crazy high price of both new and used cars. Given the year-over-year increase in length of ownership, what implications does this have for detailers other than people should consider a coating because they're going to keep the car longer and they should consider preventative maintenance, including detailing? The length of ownership incrementally just keeps going up and up year over year for the past 20 some years. I'm curious from your standpoint, what implications does that have for us as detailers?
I think it brings in mainly good things, right? Because like you mentioned, like maintenance and all that. I think some implications I see is in conjunction with like the crappy materials they're putting in cars or how thin clear coats are getting. So that could be a positive for detailers to sell on the front end, right? But also can be negative because these cheaper materials, I think of like Hyundai carpets or even Honda or like these real thin pile carpets that there's nothing to, and it's extremely hard to vacuum those elements, let alone like trying to shampoo a carpet that has no fibers, right? Like, and so I think that's going to be a problem for not only consumers, but also detailers because the consumers don't realize this, right? They don't know these things. And unless you explain it to your customer, they're going to expect that carpet looks brand new. But if there's no nap to the carpet and hardly any fibers to clean, it's like trying to clean cardboard, right? And so it's just not going to come clean. So I think it's going to take more education for detailers to inform their clients, which I think in the end is a good thing, right? And it's so often you hear on whether it's detailing podcasts or people talk about all the time is educate your customer, educate your customer. Problem is they never like tell you how to educate your customer or what that looks like. They just tell you to educate your customer. But I think this is a prime example of like you get an 8-year-old Hyundai, and the carpets are literally flat. It may be best to educate your customer that, hey, these carpets probably aren't going to be brand new looking, but what I always tell people is like, hey, you can pay me to shampoo that mat and I will do my best and it'll look decent, but you should probably just buy new floor mats, right? Now, the carpeting underneath the floor mats is going to be a different story, but a lot of times I recommend people just buy new floor mats, right? Because for the price they're going to pay for me to shampoo it to get a subpar result, if it's a crappy floor mat, is going to be not that much cheaper than just buying new floor mats. And then they're brand new. You can kind of start over. So I think there's going to be good things and bad things that come out of that. But, and sorry if I'm hijacking this, but you did ask the question. I think the longer someone owns the car, the better, because in detailing, that reoccurring client is gold, right? So this may make the lifetime value. If you're talking about running an actual detailing business, it may increase the lifetime value of a customer to you, which would be great, right? Because you're going to see that customer more often. So you might be able to make more money. So I think there's going to be more pros than cons for detailers with that stat.
So you're sending me down a mini rabbit hole here. And I'm thinking when customers get a new vehicle, in addition to having it coated, I always recommend that they get a screen protector for the center stack. And then they look at me bug eye and say, hey, as long as it's anti-glare, you've probably put a screen protector on your phone. So you could probably do it in your vehicle. You don't need a professional. Besides a screen protector, are you an advocate of things like seat covers or any other preventative, if someone's going to keep the vehicle long-term, are there accessories that you would recommend, like door sill protectors? What do you usually have conversations with customers about to make sure that they are playing defense, if that makes sense?
Totally. No, I think seat protectors, like I'm not a huge fan of, because I've seen them wear the seat underneath just as much. Especially, like I have a Land Cruiser, so a lot of older Land Cruisers have like big sheepskin, I want to say car seats, but not a baby car seat, right? But the problem is they don't fit snug enough, so they're constantly like abrading underneath the surface. The main ones for me are like all weather mats, right? Get rubber mats. That's huge. They normally cover a big majority of the area. I'm a big fan of clear film on center consoles, especially if they're like piano black. I just talked about this with my father-in-law who got a brand new truck. The B pillars that are black, getting those vinyl wrapped. to maintain that. I'm not a huge fan of like PPF or vinyl over the whole entire car, especially if you're going to keep it long term. I know there's warranties and stuff. It's so expensive to get done on the paint, and then it's so expensive to have removed. And then if you don't maintain it right, it could be a real nightmare. That I think the cost, when you actually look at how much it costs to, do a clear film on a car, and then how long it lasts, and then removal, and then the risk of removal, and what that looks like. I think the cons outweigh the pros on that. I think a ceramic and regular maintenance is going to be your better friend there. But definitely clear film on like piano black center consoles. It's funny you say about the screen protector. Long story, but one of my neighbors at my shop was helping me out and didn't set the brake on their forklift, and the forklift rolled and hit my Land Cruiser.
Oh,
which is fun. So then I got to fight with their insurance, and it's finally getting fixed. But in the meantime, I have rental cars, and I got this piece of junk Ford Expedition out front right now, and it's got like 50,000 miles on it. It's a total turd, but the screen is all worn down from people touching it. And I never really thought about a screen protector, and then I saw that and I'm like, man, this car's only got 50,000 miles. Like someone is going to pick this up used, and the screen is toast, So I definitely think a screen protector is a must have, definitely. Yeah.
A minute ago, you used the word regular maintenance. Can you quantify that in your world?
Well, so I have two different worlds, my personal world, and then what's realistic for a customer. My personal world is, if you walk out and see your car and it is like, ugh, it's like a little gross, or it's been like a week and a half, 2 weeks, you need to wash the car, right? And my personal maintenance regimen is to wash, and I add my ceramic spray almost every wash. I mean, I want to wipe the car down anyway, so I'm pretty much using it every wash, right? And so, but I think a realistic like customer who has a family, you got stuff going on, like you should be washing your car at least once a month, right? At least once a month doing that. And then every 6 to 12 months, I would say no more than 12 months, you're getting that car seen by a professional, and they're maybe doing some sort of decontamination. They're either clay or iron remover, whatever, but you're cleaning the pores of the paint. And I think when I explain it to customers like that, hey, we're exfoliating your paint, that your paint has pores just like your face does, and you wash your face every day, you take a shower every day, right? Well, all these contaminants from the air are landing and resting in your paint, and that is going to degrade your paint quicker over time. We need to make sure that we're getting that crap out of your paint and then protecting it and refilling those pores with some sort of protection, right? So that that paint lasts a lot longer, right? And that can go into, hey, clear coats are thinner now and blah, 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 blah. But when you tell someone, hey, clear coats are thinner, and they're just kind of a car person, they just like having a clean car, that means absolutely nothing to them. They're like, okay, so that sounds like a problem for in 5 or 10 years, right? But you say, hey, your car has pores, just like the pores of your skin or your face, and we need to exfoliate that, especially women, right? If you're talking to a lady customer, they're like, oh yeah, they're in. They know exactly what you're talking about, right? And it's like, well, you exfoliate your body and your face, right? Because you want to look younger, right? Well, the same is true with your car. We need to exfoliate it and clean it up, and then re-put it on good stuff. Fill it with Botox if you want, make it look younger than it is. And that's basically what car detailing is.
So we'll come up from that rabbit hole.
Rabbit holes are my specialty. That's what I like. My life is one big rabbit hole.
Congratulations. You're killing it. Mentoring, sub rosa, or lightning round?
Let's do mentoring.
All right. So up in Pennsylvania and then down here in North Carolina also, I've enjoyed mentoring a younger detailer both there and here. The most recent mentee has grown very quickly, and he and I refer back and forth with no referral fee, no BS, no stuff like that, and has worked out well for both parties. What are your thoughts on connecting with other local detailers?
I love it. I am a huge fan of it. When I first got started, I was kind of like territorial, and did that guy over there and blah blah blah. But what I learned is it's really hard to have employees, and I don't love having employees at all. But if you can befriend and yeah, befriend another detailer and you can work side by side with them. That was when my business was the most enjoyable and the most efficient because I could hire quote unquote. I would pay him more, right? Because he knew what how much I'd be making from the detail or how much a detail like that would cost. Granted, it was my customer, so I had to take into account like my marketing expenses. So I would pay him more than I would pay an employee. But what I found out is that one, I was having way more fun doing it with someone who knew what was going on. I didn't have to double check his work, and he knew what the next steps were. Right. And I thought, man, this is so much more enjoyable to work with someone you don't have to babysit. You don't get frustrated when they don't do it right. They have their own equipment, right? So what I would do is we would both roll up together in our own rigs on the job, and we would be knocking out full details on like disaster cars in like 2 hours and not be worn out, right? And so often I see these guys that are, their bodies are breaking down or, they're fed up, they're burnt out. And I'm like, man, maybe you just need to make a friend with another detailer in your local community and start knocking out cars together. That way you're going to make less money, but you're actually going to make more money because then you can fit more cars in a day. You're not as burnt out, and I think the main thing is though, the one thing that did start to get frustrating for me was because I have a big online presence is that I was getting a lot more work than he was. And then my clientele was a little bit better. So I became less willing to go on his jobs because they were like crappier cars, crappier clients, lower pay. But I've had a major shift. Here's a rabbit hole for you. I've had a major shift recently of going from being the bullish kind of ass to much more like friendly, nice, wanting to be friends with people, right? Because I think you catch what's the saying? Like you catch more flies with honey than you do vinegar, right? Or you catch more bees with honey than vinegar. And so I've been throwing out a lot of vinegar for a long time, and I'm trying to switch that up a little bit. So I'm a big fan of it though. Mario is a detailer that I met very, very early on in my detailing space, and he's still a mobile detailer right around my community. And every time we see each other, we hug it out. And he's a great dude, great guy.
Sub Rosa lightning round.
What's sub Rosa? Let's go there.
It's some fancy term that I wrote down that makes me sound smarter than I am, but it's basically
when I was actually a little worried because I'm like, I don't know what that is.
Well, you and Nick from DIY recently talked about this. When you see how the sausage is made, sometimes it's a bit disappointing. So without using the word blender, we're speaking about blenders. Because I believe you started detailing 2008 in the midst of the financial crisis. So you've got like 16 years in. So certainly you've seen things come and go. You've also seen how the sausage is made, and there's been some things that have left you disappointed. So given your backstage pass to the detailing industry, what's one thing that you've seen over the years that has left you disappointed?
There's a lot. There's a lot that has disappointed me. The main thing being how little some brands actually care about the end user. And I think that's the most disappointing thing to me is that, and I think it's changing a little bit. And that's why I'm a big fan actually of like influencers having their own brand, younger brands coming out, because I feel like they're more connected with the customer base. They're not, they have to try a lot harder. And I think we've seen it in other industries, Blockbuster and Netflix and Mervyn's, and a lot of these bigger companies that Kmart, that were just juggernauts that have gone out of business because they lost touch with their customer base, basically, right? They lost touch with culture. They became too corporate. But a lot of my cynicism, a lot of my vinegar-esque How's that for
You're
a
turning
word?
into George Bush. You're just making stuff up. You're creating words on the fly. Well done.
See why I use ChatGPT now? Because I could say, hey, give me 10 words instead of using the phrase for vinegar, But I think a lot of my cynicism comes from what I've seen on the back end. And the problem that I've run into is that I've realized is people don't care about it, right? The vast majority of people don't care that the brand that they're supporting doesn't care about them, right? And then that brings up another thought of like my biggest disappointment is the lies. And for some reason it's the lying that gets to me. Right. And I was just having a conversation because I'm going to have him on the podcast. This guy named Tom Horvath, who started a brand called System 1 way back in the day, System 51, and now it's CSI. And he's comes from the body shop space, and he's been a one liquid, multiple pad compound polish guy for a long time, like a long time. I found him in 2008 and he was already doing it then, right? And through the years, brands like Meguiar's launched a system that was identical to Tom's called Solo One, right? And Meguiar's has, and then it failed. And then Meguiar's recently released Solo One, right? And almost kind of denied that they had ever launched Solo One before. And I'm like, why? Like, so that is what bugs me the most, right? Another brand, I had Joey Belinsky on, and we were discussing brands and stuff like that. And then it went to texting afterwards, and like we were discussing some random brands that we didn't talk about on the show. And he showed me like a couple logos and stuff, and he's like, oh, look at this logo, it's just like this one, but yeah, this brand has like this elaborate story around the logo when it's so obvious they just copied the logo of this other brand. And I'm like, why? Like, why did they lie about that? And it's really the lies that get to me. And there was so many lies when I worked at the blender of and I've used this example before of like, oh, let's just call that a ceramic spray coating. And I'm like, but it's not. It's like it's barely a detail spray, And they're like, so what? No one cares. Like just put it on the label. I'm like, what do you mean just put it on the label? Like you could just do that? And I remember the guy looking at me like, yeah, you could put whatever you want on the label. He's like, in fact, you could just change the SDS too. Just add it to the SDS. And that's what gets us these things of like, oh, we have 13% SiO2 in our product. And I'm like, but that's not possible. But it's like, oh, well, that's what the SDS says. And that's where I'm like, well, people lie on the SDS. They just add whatever they want. Could they get in trouble? Yes. But like, who's going to go through all that rigmarole to prove one person wrong? Right. And then that's when it goes back to like, at the end of the day, the end consumer doesn't care that they're being lied to about the percentage of SiO2 in their product. They want to believe it. They think they're getting a good result. I'm tired of trying to tell people the truth and then them not believing the truth because they don't want to know. Right. And that's what I was talking to Joey about yesterday is like people that are enthusiasts are looking to detailing as an outlet, as therapy. Right. And taking on all this drama about how much SiO2 or lying or whatever, it's like it takes away from their therapy that they're trying to get out of detailing, which I understand. And so that's what has made me kind of shift my approach a little bit. Like, catch more bees with honey than you do vinegar,
Roger that.
How's that for an answer?
I'm climbing out of the rabbit hole as we speak. Maybe that should be your thumbnail for this. See if ChatGPT can come up with a good.
They can't. I tried. They don't. They terrible thumbnails.
So got down to MTE last year. Haven't been to SEMA. That's on the bucket list. But as far as solopreneurs or one-man shops or mobile guys like me, taking the time and investing in going, do you try to get to national conferences like that every year? I know for a while you were going and recording content, but what are your thoughts on the value in attending specifically MTE or SEMA?
Do you want the quick answer or do you want a long drawn out answer? Okay. The quick answer is every single time I've invested my money and time going to whether it's MTE or SEMA or any other show. There was one in Kentucky I went to, I forget what it was called. But big or small, every time I've gone to a show, and I call it investing because you have to spend the money to go, right? I've gotten a nugget out of it, at least one. And that's always my goal, is to like, okay, I need to look for one nugget out of this whole entire show. It's a 4-day show, it's a 2-day show, whatever it is. I just need one little nugget, one conversation with someone where I pull out one little piece that I can take home. And if I could do that, it'll be a success, and so that's my mindset going into those shows is, where's the nugget? What's the conversation I'm having? What's the product? One year for me, it was Dr. Color chip that I found, which was a great find. But most of the time it's just having a one-off conversation with someone,
So if that's the short answer, I'm going to push back and say, what would have been different in the long answer?
The long answer would have been that in trying to find those nuggets, sometimes I've tried to create the nugget, and in creating the nugget, I brought my camera crew to SEMA to try to, create content and stuff like that. But sometimes you have to let the nugget come to you. You can't force getting the nugget. And sometimes you're hesitant to do it because it costs money. So for me, MTE, for example, like is a 2-day show on the other side of the country, right? And so it's like, it's a very short show with a 3-hour time change and 2 days, right? And so I hesitate going to MTE because I'm like, it's kind of expensive to fly all the way to the other side of the country. I'll be honest, Orlando, Florida is like not the most glamorous place. It's kind of the armpit of the whole country. Sorry if you live in Orlando. I don't even like the Magic, right? Even though they gave us Shaq, right? But and even SEMA, it's a 45-minute flight. It's a 4-hour drive. It's not that big of a deal to go. But then I'm like, Vegas, and how expensive Ubers are, and I hate Vegas, and blah blah blah. Like I could easily, it's going to cost me a couple $1,000, and like I easily talk myself out of it. But then I talked myself out of it this year. I didn't go to SEMA, right? I just didn't. And luckily I didn't have FOMO this year, but I'm going next year, right? But I've gone like 9 years in a row or whatever it is. And so, but I always end up getting a nugget out of that. Sometimes that nugget is just maintaining a relationship so that I could just keep, like, I could text that person and they'll respond, right? I just text before we jumped on. I just text Matt Mormon with Obsessed Garage. I haven't talked to him in years. I didn't see him at SEMA, obviously. And I text him like, hey, you want to do a podcast? He's like, heck yeah, man. Whenever you want to do it, let's go. And so sometimes going to those shows is just, meeting up with people like Matt, right? And just kind of nurturing that relationship.
Let me pivot for a second. Growing up, besides trying to get down to the Staples Center as much as you could to see your team,
it was the Forum back then. The Forum.
Sorry.
Actually, it was Staples too, but yeah.
Were you a car guy growing up?
No. In fact, no one no one. My dad's not a car person. My mom's not a car person. None of my sisters are into cars. I had an uncle that was kind of into cars. Well, he was really into cars, but we had like it was my dad's brother, and he had like a weird relationship with him. So I didn't know him that well, but he always had like obscure cars. So I think he was a car guy, and then I had like an uncle that was a car guy. He was into like Model Ts and stuff. But I didn't really know him at all. And so I don't know where I've actually tried to figure this out, but like, because there's so little information on these people, like, I don't know where I got the car gene from. I just remember one day driving to school, and I was in middle school, 6th, 7th grade, I think 7th grade or maybe 8th grade. And I can so vividly remember where we were, how I was sitting, what I was looking at. And I saw a brand new Mercedes with paper plates, black, and it was disgustingly dirty, like so gross. And I remember thinking, isn't that interesting that a brand new car, which to me, I grew up very middle class. Like Seal Beach, where I live, was a sleepy lower middle class beach town. It was not, I mean, now if you look, it's like high end beach town, but it wasn't that when I was growing up. So I grew up, I mean, my family car was a 1982 Volvo 240 wagon. Okay. Google that, right? Not a sexy
Chicks
car.
were digging that one, be
And
honest.
and how about this? A Mazda MPV. Okay. like, you know, that's how car people my family were. Okay. We had an 82 Volvo wagon and a 96 Mazda MPV. Okay. That's, yeah, Google those cars. And so I think, but I even think that had me desiring like better cars. Like I remember when the new MPV came out and I was like, man, maybe my dad will get the new MPV, right? I remember going and looking at, you know, the F-150 Lariat edition and being like, oh, maybe my dad will get like a cool truck. And I remember my friend's dad getting like a nice like Dodge Ram 1500 and lifted it and put rims and tires, and me just being like, oh my God. So like, I was always into cars, and I would try to explain that to my dad, like, Dad, you need a truck. Like, this truck's so cool and blah, the feature. And like, he's like, the MPV's fine. I don't have a payment, you know, which I think just fueled my like desire to have a cool car, but going back to seeing that dirty Mercedes, what I made a decision in that moment of like, because on the contrary to that, I saw an older car that was clean. And I was like, isn't that interesting that an older car that is clean looks better than a brand new car that is filthy dirty? And being in that middle class, lower middle class, driving a Mazda MPV mindset, I didn't have the expectations of driving a brand new Mercedes or any brand new car, right? So I equated to, hey, regardless of what car I have, it's going to be the cleanest car ever, because that will help it make it look nicer. So when I got my 1994 Volvo 850 Turbo in maroon as my first car.
It doesn't matter if you try to sound sexy when you say it.
It still doesn't work.
You can't pull it off.
By the way, that car spent more time at the mechanic than it did with me driving it. And so luckily someone T-bowed me and totaled it. And then I got a real car, a 4Runner. But even when I had that sexy maroon Volvo 850 Turbo, I never say it without the turbo. Another gem of a car you can Google. That car never was dirty, right? Because even though I drove a turd, it wasn't going to have the added turdness of dirt. Made up another word.
I think you're in a older, boxy Land Cruiser at this point. If money's no object, what else would you purchase?
I'm adding 2 cars to the fleet if money's no object. One, I'm getting a brand new truck, a brand new Tundra, right? With the product brand, I'm hauling a lot of stuff, and I kind of use the Land Cruiser more as a truck nowadays, which kills me. But it's a great family road trip car. That's why I love it. But I'm adding a truck. If money's no object, I'm adding a Sprinter. I think they call them like the Weekender or something like that. And it's not a Sprinter limo, but it's not an overlander with like a bed. Like, I don't want to be off-grid camping. I'm not interested in that. What I'm interested is we're going on a 5-hour road trip. I got 3 kids and 2 dogs. Let's be comfy with the toilet in the back, right? So a little kitchenette, maybe a couple couches for the kids to spread out, and a bathroom in the back. And we roll up to the hotel in that, right? All right. That's, if money's no object, that's what I'm going out and buying. It's like $250,000, and you literally use it for road trips only, right? You're not sleeping in it. I have zero interest in camping. I don't need a solar panel on the roof. If I'm in that situation, I'm going to need a helicopter to get out. Okay. And so I'm getting that. And then I'm going to get a barn car. So my daughters are into horseback riding. And so they're at the horse barn a couple days a week, which is basically like driving down a farm road and then parking right next to someone who's just doing donuts in the dirt. And then also a windstorm at the same time. So the cars just get destroyed every week. And so, and then their boots and blah, blah, blah. So I want a barn car that all it does is drives to the barn. That's it. And then I want my Sprinter and maybe a truck, and keep the Land Cruiser, and, you know, life would be good.
Hey, before we go any further, please take 30 seconds, plug an upcoming product or talk about a big goal that you have for next year relative to the brand.
Yeah, let's do it. And while we do that, maybe I can put up this banner that I forgot to do earlier. Yeah, Jimbo's Detailing just launched the Complete Cabin Cleaner, which is an interior cleaner. I appreciate the shout out. This is going to be cool. And so really, I'm looking at launching a couple new products in the new year. I'm not sure if I want to do like a rinseless wash because those are becoming really popular. I'm not quite sure. I have a couple other ideas for like waxes that I think would be cool too, but I'm kind of unsure on that. So I'm probably going to wait for the new year to kind of figure out what direction I want to go. But I'm really excited because I've really built out the line with some core products. But I realize, you know, that people want more and having more options for people is a good thing. So I used to always, it's kind of where I've changed my stance a little bit too, is that people have always, I've always been reluctant to be a product line with like 25 products. But the reality is that once people try one product and they like it, they want to buy more, and having a solution for all those wants and desires is, you know, what creates a profitable company too. So, but if you want to use code YouTube at jimbosdetailing.com, you can get 20% off. So thanks for setting that softball up for me, Joe.
Sure thing. And let me push a little bit further and challenge you. You know, when you think of Shark Tank or things like that, where, you know, you're building out, the fruits of your labor are starting to be obvious as you build out the brand, the product lines. Blowing it out or taking it to the next level, I would just, and you don't need to respond to this, but I would just challenge you, or encourage you, insert whatever smart sounding word right here, to think about how somebody could come alongside without taking too much equity and blow you up to the point that it takes you to the next level. Because, and please correct me if I'm wrong here, you grew up in a Southern California car culture, beach culture, whatever else. And how you then expand that out, not only through the United States, but also worldwide, I would think changes a little bit. I know personally, I'm very, you know, I'm like the horse with blinders on. I know what I know, and I'm comfortable knowing that. And sometimes it takes people give me a swift kick in the rear end to think about things a little bit differently. So for what it's worth, I just want to throw that out there.
No, it's definitely another thing that is on my radar that I'm definitely interested in is, you know, potential, because I don't have any investors. I've cash flowed this whole thing myself. And I have a good group of people that help me on and off, but like you said, getting it to kind of a global stage or bigger than that is definitely something I'm interested in. And, you know, I've looked at things like Adams Polishes or McGuire's being bought out by a bigger person. And it takes a lot to get it to a global stage. And I think that's probably a route that I eventually want to explore a little bit. So yeah, I appreciate that.
You remember when Pete called you a knucklehead? I guess it was at church one weekend for not podcasting about detailing. So I'm wondering, you know, who's going to be that next person who drops that truth bomb on you and what it looks like.
I don't know. It's funny because my video guy, Bryant, you know, I did that first podcast with Nick. I've been struggling with my YouTube content and trying to figure out, you know, how do I keep talking about my brand without making every video sound like a ad? And also I think detailing content's a little stale right now. And so this video podcast, even what we're doing right now, I was like, maybe I'll try. Like, I've been doing this podcast for 10 years and I've tried video in the past. It didn't really work. Tried SEMA in the past. It didn't really work. But like this year at SEMA, it seemed like the content worked a little better. I'm like, maybe I'll just start doing video podcasts again. Like, it's, you know, I love doing podcasts. And so I did that one with Nick and the video kind of blew up. And I was telling my video guy, Brian, I'm like, dude, it blew up. He's like, I've been trying to tell you. I'm like, I told him next time, just keep telling me. I am so thick-headed that you just keep telling me. So in that spirit, if there is someone out there that has been trying to contact me about blowing up the Jimbo's Detailing brand and I've just ignored you, just keep reaching out. Because I am not that smart, okay?
No, but and I don't mean to sound like a fanboy or kiss up here when I say this, but at least you're humble enough to remove your cranium from your rectum and eventually surface. So,
you know what? I just don't have a lot of skills, but if that's one skill I have, that is a very important skill.
Yeah, just I imagine, and maybe this is a conversation for off podcast, but I imagine one of the concerns is how do you not get labeled a sellout?
I think I'm less worried about that now. I think I'm what I'm really learning because I pay attention and I try to be a student of this game too. Whether this game is YouTube, whether it's having a product brand, whether it's videos that work, and when I say videos that work, I mean like get some views or videos that don't, or what's the feedback in the comments. Like I really study this stuff, and I really watch other brands and look at other brands, and what the conclusion that I've started to come to is the people that are the bullish on things like calling you a sellout, it's because they don't have the opportunity that you do. And if they had the opportunity, they would be a sellout too. And really, what does that mean to be a sellout even? Because it's like, okay, well, videos that work really well are talking about McGuire's or Turtle Wax or whatever. But it's like, okay, so if I do that, but I have no relationship with the brand, right? I'm just, buying the products myself, paying my video guy to come over and shoot a video on it, and maybe I make a little bit of ad revenue, but I'm not a sellout. That only comes at the detriment of me because I'm taking away time from my family. I'm investing in this product brand, or I'm investing in the product themselves. So it's actually costing me money. I'm having someone record me. So that's actually costing me more money, right? Which I guess you don't technically have to have. But it's like, but what if I do establish a relationship with that brand and I can still keep it honest or maybe change up my videos a little bit or whatever, but be compensated for my knowledge or my expertise? Isn't that what we're all trying to do, is be compensated for the things that we know, the things that we like to talk about? Like, is being a teacher a sellout? I don't think so. Right?
Yeah.
Like, is going and working at Red Lobster a sellout? I don't think so. That'd be weird, right? Like, is Joe Rogan a sellout to Roca and Athletic Greens and Spotify? I don't think so. I think he's like being a smart business guy and getting the bills paid, right? And so I think what happens though is people lie. And that makes it trickier, right? Is they start lying about their relationship with the investor that's backing them. They start lying about they actually do have a relationship with that brand and they don't talk about it, right? And so though that was me for a long time, specifically with like Turtle Wax, the projects I worked on with them didn't see the light of day for like a year. So if I wasn't, developing a product and then doing a review on that product, I wasn't doing that. Right. And so, I think which is ultimately why I released my own brand too, because I'm only good at talking about things right in front of me. Right. And so anyway, that gets down a real gray, squirrely road too. So yeah, but I don't think it'd be a sellout.
So I think you mentioned early on in your podcasting career, your father was an entrepreneur or is an entrepreneur. Are you also surrounded with other entrepreneurs in your family that DNA is there?
So this is another area that yes. However, I do call them business owners because I do think there's a difference between a business owner and an entrepreneur. With that being said, I do not think one is better than the other. I don't think, oh, well, I'm an entrepreneur and they're just a business owner. Like, I don't think that at all. But I think if you get into the weeds of it, there is slight differences between a business owner and then an entrepreneur, right? So, which I never had that distinction before, right? So I viewed, yes, my dad is a small business owner, entrepreneur. He's had multiple businesses and different industries. And then his grandpa was an entrepreneur, owned a motel. On my mom's side, her parents were entrepreneurs, kind of as a side hustle, because they had 8 kids and they just needed money. And since I started out on my own business in 2008, which a big motivating factor for that growing up was my dad was his own boss. And so I worked in his, he had like a t-shirt and candy shop growing up, and I worked there and learned how to make change and run the till and inventory and all those things. And now he owns a pack and ship business. which is perfect for Jimbo's detailing. People ask all the time, well, how do you, pack up all these orders and do all that? I'm like, you've never seen someone work a tape gun better than I can. Okay. Like a real testament to how someone can pack a box is how well can you work a tape gun, right? And it's amazing how bad people are at tape guns. It's really funny. We should have a tape gun competition.
Okay, hang on. A few minutes ago, I called you humble. I wish to rescind that comment.
When it comes to tape guns, okay? You want to talk about paint correction, I'll be humble. You talk about tape gun, I'll go to the death.
So there won't be a buff off in your future, but there will be a tape gun off. Is that what you're saying?
Sometimes when I get real deep in my dark thoughts, I just start thinking, what does that guy look like with a tape gun in his hand? I bet he looks so dumb.
You, sir, are weird.
Guilty.
I mean, that's sort of as a compliment, but that's
fine. I like that. That is pretty weird. Anyway, what was your original question?
Asking about entrepreneurial DNA, but you made the point of business owner. So what I've done in my job is, in my life, is I've created a job for myself.
Yep.
Whereas an entrepreneur, I look at that as, exponential jobs.
Yes.
Someone who creates something that then provides for multiple people.
Yes.
So I really enjoy the freedom and flexibility of working for myself, but I think it's quite a reach to call myself an entrepreneur. And I think you made that point about a business owner versus an entrepreneur. Yep,
exactly. And I don't put one above the other, or I don't think less of a business owner than an entrepreneur. I was having this conversation with my mom the other day, as I'm sure you've seen in culture too, like probably since COVID or maybe a little bit before COVID, like being a quote unquote, and people use them interchangeably, right? So I guess in that spirit, I'll use them interchangeably, but like being a small business owner or entrepreneur has gotten like real sexy lately. Yep. Right. And I was having this conversation with my mom the other day of like, there are more times than not that I wish I didn't want to be a business owner or entrepreneur, because it's 24/7 all the time. I'm constantly thinking about it. I'm constantly stressed out about it. I'm constantly looking for ways to like de-stress from it, constantly worried about money, constantly worried about the next thing. And I'm like, I get envious of like people that can just go clock into a 9-to-5 job. Granted, they have to thank God it's Friday, oh crap, it's Monday, whatever. But like, they know they're getting a paycheck. And I've thought more times than not of like, man, maybe should I just go work for like the city?
No. You said you make a terrible employee. You said that yourself.
But then that happens. I make a terrible, and I am a terrible employee. Like, and it's funny, but I've been fired from every job I've had. Every job I've been fired, every job, including consulting jobs. I've been, let go. Maybe fired is a little rough, but I've been let go from everything I've done, because it just gets to a point in my brain where I'm like, I would sell feet pictures, before I go back on Monday to this place. How's that for a soundbite?
I was not expecting that. Yeah, you can clip that and make that a short. I'm sure that'll blow up on its own.
Yeah. So then I'm stuck. I have to be an entrepreneur. It's through and through in my DNA, wherever that came from. I always knew. My internal temp got too hot. Okay. My camera's
turning to Chernobyl.
Yes, I don't know what's going on. All right, let me see if I could turn. Well, what happened to my camera there? All right, let's see if I could turn it off.
Hey, I know you don't edit, so if this is still recording, I got $20 that says you're probably going to put this out without clipping this. Come on, man. Practice? What are you talking about practice? I'm supposed to be a franchise player, and you're sitting here talking about practice.
So to clarify, I will not be editing that.
Were you recording that?
We were, heck yeah. I will not
edit.
I will not be editing that, but Bryant will. So I don't know what happened to my camera. I've been having issues with my HDMI cable. I'm gonna run out, try to get it. I think it's the port on my camera. Something overheated. I don't know. This is why I don't do video, right? Then it's jacked up. So anyway, I think we've done over an hour anyway. So let's wrap this up with the lightning round. And at least
let's if it's okay with you, let's skip lightning round. I got a bonus question for you instead.
All right, let's do the bonus question.
You have 3 seconds to answer this, and only 3.
Oh, geez.
No pressure.
Okay.
Can you name the title of your very first podcast?
Episode 1.
I cannot argue with your logic, sir. It was
intro.
Got it yet?
Intro. Welcome to the Auto Detailing Podcast.
No.
I don't know.
No, the title. The name.
The title. Was it intro though? Like episode 1?
Nope. The money is in the minivans.
Oh, that was my first podcast episode?
According to YouTube, when I filtered it based on oldest, yeah.
Oh, okay. First on YouTube. I think
I should have clarified. You got me there. Yeah. Hey, fun fact, it was uploaded on April 14th, 2015, and it received 6 likes and 1 comment. You've come a long way, buddy. You've come a long way. Seriously, though, you put out a lot of content over the last 9 years just in YouTube, and I appreciate it. And what would be a banger outro right now is and this is really testing your computer skills, if you could pot up the you remember the intro music that you had? Oh,
man.
Yep, I'm calling out to the bullpen on this one.
I don't think I could pull it up because I don't think, well, 1, I don't know if I have it. 2, I don't know let's see if I can get it even.
Who created that? Was that Fiverr?
Yeah, that was Fiverr.
That was really well done.
Yeah, it was Fiverr. Let me see if I have it, because I was also really bad at saving stuff back then.
Oh man, don't make me talk about the
I have it. Episode. I have it. Let's see if I could play it and get it to come into the mic. Hold on. Let me see.
Welcome to the Auto Detailing Podcast, where we bring you the latest information in the car care industry with special interviews from the leading professionals in the industry. Now, here's your host, JIMBO Balaam.
Was it that one?
No, I don't mean the guy's voiceover. I mean the doon 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 doon. It's a lot
just
like
the beat.
Yeah.
Let's see. I have another one. Let's see.
I know anybody who's watching this at this point is cringing because the two of us trying to.
Yeah.
Two middle-aged white guys.
Jeez Louise. Hey, I'm younger.
I'm turning 50 this year, man.
Congrats. The beat. I was really bad at saving stuff back then too.
You'll have to imagine my surprise.
Yeah, I'm better at it now, but clearly not any better at technology because either my camera overheated or I don't know what's going on. I think my computer is actually slowly dying, and so I'm having more and more issues with it. But anyway, here nor there. At least the content was good. Okay. Gave a great podcast, and I always enjoy getting your emails, and I always really do enjoy getting your emails and doing podcasts with you, and I'm super glad we did another one because they're always one thing to go back to my you catch more bees. I don't even know if that's the right saying, but I'm gonna go with it, right? But you catch more bees with honey than vinegar, and I enjoy doing these podcasts with people that I enjoy doing them with, and what a statement is that? And so that's what I'm trying to do is just do fun, raw podcast with people that I enjoy doing podcasts with and have a history of doing podcasts with. And you're one of those guys. And it's just always a good time. I just always I have 2 podcasts today and I'm so excited to do both of them. And I really hope they work on YouTube because if they don't get any views, it's going to kind of hurt my feelings a little bit. But I really think that this is the type of content that people want to see. And I talked about I feel like detailing content's a little stale lately. I guess I should have made us look. There we go. And I think detailing content's been a little stale lately. And I think this is really what people want to hear is people, they want to hear about your story, Joe. They want to hear that you lived in Pennsylvania, you were a teacher, and now you're in North Carolina and you're mentoring other guys in your neighborhood and other detailers and far or close, whatever, right? Like there's so much value, in my opinion, and I think other people are starting to see it too. And I know we didn't talk much about you today, but there's so much value that I think you have to give to people, because you can't shortcut years. And that's one thing that I'm learning with my product brand business. And again, if I can actually go back, I will put that banner back up, baby. But
oh, sure, you can find that, but you can't find the audio. I see.
Yeah. Gosh, I lost my train of thought. But I was thinking, so with the product brand business, I was talking with, my chemist, and they have a couple brands, and they've been in the game a long time. And I said, man, how long is it before, how long do you have a brand before you just feel like you're not like slugging through the mud every day trying to get, people to find out about it? And they were like, 2 to 4 years, and I'm like, all right, well, that sucks, but now I know. Right. And it's like, but I had to glean on their inside of 40 years to tell me it's 2 to 4 years. Right. And so I really had that thought of like, man, you can't shortcut years. Right. And so it's very frustrating to learn things out on your own because they take so long to learn. And so I think, anyway, that's why I like having you on, because I think we can glean a lot of insight from your journey, and that helps a lot of people shortcut their time to learn new things, so
Definitely.
I appreciate that.
I think you got a lot of people who come on who've put in their 10,000 hours. You were talking earlier about nuggets. It was making me hungry because I like chicken nuggets right now, but that's another thing.
Okay, hold on, pause, rabbit hole.
What
do you like better, McDonald's breakfast or lunch dinner?
That's not even what kind of, I refuse to accept the number 5 on the menu is breakfast. Go to bacon, egg, and cheese McGriddle. Don't give me that look.
Yes. The
bacon, egg, and cheese McGriddle is one of the best inventions. I don't care how many microplastics are in it.
Doesn't matter.
It's not my GI tract. Totally worth it.
The McGriddle is the greatest invention in the history of inventions. Yeah. It is how I eat pancakes with syrup and not get it all over me. You know what I mean? Anyway. Back to whatever we were talking about. That great combo, by the way. Great combo.
So it's almost like this slow drip mastermind, because you have these people on here, plenty of whom I've learned from, and I appreciate you doing that because they've put in their 10,000 hours. They know what the heck they're talking about, and they'll say something that will send people to reflect back on, okay, what am I doing? How am I doing it? And how do I suck? Because we don't.
Now your device is not connected. What the heck? We lost you, Joe. Now we're in like something happened with all the technology.
Here, I tell you what, I'll play this out. Hopefully this will work. Let me see. Is it playing for you?
I can barely hear it. Nope.
All right, never mind. That was a fail.
You know, one of my favorite things, though, whether it's on podcasts that I do or podcasts I listen to, the dead air of just, can you hear this? And then when there's nothing, I love that part of podcast. Every time I hear it, I don't know what it is. Every time I hear it, I'm like, I'm so glad they left that in. Like, but I think that's, people want to see the realness, the behind the scenes, right? Like, I don't look as good on this camera than I did, but that's okay. Right.
Well, I think we've given them plenty of unvarnished dead time interruptions, etc. in this episode. So I'm not sure what the thumbnail will look like. Maybe it'll be a big question mark or random or whatever.
Maybe we'll see. But yeah, anyway, but there is a lot of truth to that 10,000 hour thing. And I did have the epiphany earlier this year that wouldn't it be funny if year 10 of the podcast was the best year for the podcast? And I think it might be, you know, so this is normally where I tell people, hey, if people want to follow you, Joe, how can they, you know, get a hold of you? But you mentioned earlier how you don't do social media. But if there is someone, you know, that just wants to reach out and say, hey, thanks, or enjoyed that podcast, or hey, I have a quick question, or I'm in Eastern North Carolina and I want to buy you coffee, or I want to buy you a number 5 at McDonald's, how could they do that?
My website is www.makemyautoshine.com.
Perfect. So people can go on there and contact you. It's much better than giving out your cell phone number on the internet.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to end the recording here. Again, Joe, I really appreciate it. I had a blast, and it's always so fun. So thanks for doing this again and taking time out of your busy day.
Kurt Rambis.